Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the QT2 Systems Podcast, My Life as a Pro. Our featured guest for this episode is Jennie Hansen, who is a recently retired professional triathlete and also a longtime coach with QT2 Systems. Welcome, Jennie.
Thanks, Reem.
Thanks for being on today. I'm looking forward to you telling your sort of full circle and continuing story. So I just want to start out quick with can you just tell us like what years you raced as a professional triathlete?
So my first year as a pro was 2012, and then I kept racing as a pro through 2023.
Okay. So I mean, I know there were some breaks in there,
Yeah, yeah,
the better part of 12 years racing as a pro. That's
yep,
pretty long
yep.
career. Okay.
Was.
So in 2012, can I ask how old you were?
How old was I? I was 27, and then I turned 28 at the end of the year.
Okay. Okay. So talk, maybe come back a little bit, come back a lot. And what was it like? How did you first start getting into the world of endurance sports?
Actually, I started running in middle school and way back in seventh grade. I actually it was kind of the classic. I ran a good gym class mile in sixth grade, and I was going to play soccer that fall, but I had kind of was a little disenchanted with the travel soccer coaches and the cross country coach. I had put my name on a list that I was interested in cross country, and the cross country coach hand wrote me a note and said, "I hope you come out for the team." And so I got that. And I was like, "Well, he sounds nice. I think I want to run." And so I started running modified cross country, and I mean, I was like, I wasn't winning races, but I was like top 10. I was getting ribbons, and I was like, this is great. I love this. And, I kind of found as we were talking about, kind of found my like weird little group of people and friends there too. So
Okay.
that just evolved over time and all through high school and college.
Okay. So you ran cross country in the fall. Did you run track at all in the spring also, or?
Yeah. In middle school, I played other sports, but then when I got to high school, I started running cross country and track year round.
Okay. And then you went to college and ran your way through college.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't like a good college runner, but I was good enough to like go to meets and come in like second to last. So it was fun though.
Good enough to toe the line, which is way better than most
Exactly,
people will ever be.
exactly.
Way better. So, so you ran through college, and then after that, did you just keep on running for a while?
Yeah. I mean, my college coach had like a post collegiate cross country team that I ran on a little bit, and got injured a lot, but I did like a lot of local 5K, 10Ks, kind of would go try to find like a 5K to win $50 to pay for groceries for the week when I was in grad school, that kind of thing.
Okay. And at what point did you decide to switch from running to triathlon?
I think, well, because I had been injured so often, I had already done, like, I did a lot of stationary biking to begin with. I don't really, like, I don't have a real swim background, but I had done a season of swim club when I was in seventh grade, I think. It was terrible, but I at least knew how to swim. And so I finally in early 2009, I had a stress fracture in my pelvis, and the doctor was like, well, you can't run for 12 weeks or whatever, but you can swim and bike. And I think at that point, I had played around at the gym. I'd done like one of those indoor triathlons. I think there was a triathlete at the gym who like had seen me cross train there and knew me as a runner and told me I should think about triathlon. So I went to the pool and I just swam. I think I just like went in the pool and swam a 1500 straight, and it was like a reasonable enough time. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll buy a bike and sign up for a triathlon if I can't run. So I kind of did. We had a couple friends too that were into it, so that
Okay.
inspired me to some degree.
So, what year now are we up to?
So this was September in 2009. I did my first triathlon that was an Olympic, and I
Okay.
think I did like a duathlon that fall too.
Okay. And what do you think?
I mean, I remember like I got into the water and was like panicking, but then I got out and I think I worked my way up to like fourth place or something. So I was pretty hooked from the bat off the bat.
Yeah.
I think it's fun as a runner too, because like at the time when I was just kind of pure runner, I was working my way up the whole time. So that was fun for me.
Yeah, I always say like there's sort of an advantage to not being a really strong swimmer. I mean, you don't want to be like way out of the thing, but there is something exciting about catching and passing and finding the next person. You know,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
better than being passed all the time.
Yeah. So I'm not good on the other side of that now, and it was more fun when I was passing.
Yeah, I definitely prefer the chase than to be
Yeah,
than to
yeah.
be chased. So, okay, so we're looking end of 2009. And then did you know like after, so your first one being an Olympic, did you know then that you wanted to try to get into longer distance?
I wasn't sure at the time just because I didn't think I was durable enough. I got injured so easily, but I signed up for a half Ironman, and I think just having which was so daunting to me at the time, but I think just having like the balance of different disciplines, I was able to actually make it to that race healthy. Then
Okay.
actually I did really well there for my first 70.3. So I think that was kind of like an eye opener of maybe I'm better longer.
Mhm. So that was, you did that the following year.
Yeah.
And okay. And then you said you turned pro in 2012. So talk me through then those, how you went from your first few races of triathlon to earning your pro license.
I think, I didn't really have much of an idea of like what the triathlon world was like at first, but I think I kind of towards the end of 2010, I was starting to learn like, oh, there's a half Ironman World Championship. So I started looking at Ironman branded races for the like early part of Dog's About to Bark 2011. And Cody, I decided that I wanted to try to qualify for 70.3 Worlds. And so I raced Moose Man and won my age group, and then went to 70.3 Worlds, like just kind of thinking I was gonna race and, have a decent day. And I think there was like some preview of the race that came out, and it's like, oh, Jennie Hansen could be one of the contenders in 20 to 25, 25 to 29. I was like, what? So I ended up winning my age group there, and like
Wow.
and that was the second amateur, which is like not even anywhere on my radar. Like I've been thinking, I had kind of had this inkling of like maybe someday I'll want to go pro, and was kind of like looking at what are some of the pathways to get there next year. But I ended up qualifying for the pro card at that time, and it's like, well, might as well try it.
Well, is that so? I mean, you qualified pretty quickly, but obviously you
Yeah.
had you knew. I mean, you don't win your age group at the World Championships without having just a little talent there. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so was it an easy decision for you to take the pro card?
At the time I had just like right before 70.3 Worlds, I had actually started talking to Mary Eggers, my first coach, about having her coach me for the next year. And then I qualified for the pro card, and I'm like, well, what do I do now? And at the time my swim was definitely not up to par, but she kind of looked at my training and was like, you're swimming twice a week. We can definitely improve that. Like, just go for it. And I think my criteria was I was later that fall. I was running which has nothing to do with triathlon, but I was running the New York Marathon. I was like, okay, if I go under 3 hours at the New York Marathon, I'll feel like I can belong in the pro field. And
Mhm.
I did. So that was my like deciding factor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then working with Mary, I mean, she has such a strong swim background, so that must have been like a good fit for you to get.
Yeah. That was definitely, I mean, I think at the time I was working hard in the pool, but I was only swimming like twice a week, and I'd never done any sort of video analysis or anything. So that was just step one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you took your pro card in 2011,
Yeah. At the end of it.
and what was your first pro race?
My first pro race was Galveston in 2012, 70.3, which
Okay.
was the North American Championship at the time. And it was that like brief window when Lance Armstrong was racing, like right before he got busted. So it was just
Right.
a media circuit.
Right.
Yep.
So as someone who isn't a strong swimmer, or at the time relatively a strong swimmer, how did that feel like like your first lineup as a pro? And
I think I came out of I don't even know if I beat anyone out of the water, maybe a couple people, but I'd been kind of prepared for it because like everyone was like, the race is just going to go off at a dead sprint and like just sprint as hard as you can and try to stay in contact. So that was exactly what happened. And I mean, I don't even remember what I was out of the water or off the bike there. I had a good run, but I just remember like, I think it was probably Jesse who was like warning me that, you're just going to be alone for most of the day and that's okay. Like you'll get there. But
yeah. So after your first pro race, or even while you were doing it, were you thinking, okay, this is good, I can do this? Or you're like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Maybe
I think
both.
I was thinking I could do it for the most part. I don't know. I think I came in like 20th or something there. But then actually a few weeks later, I went to New Orleans and they canceled the swim and they made it like a run bike run. So I ended up like that was a good confidence boost because I was like, okay, like my run is there and like my bike isn't that far off. So it was just a good like I can do this sort of boost.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so 2012, your first year, 2013, we were talking before, was really a breakthrough year for you. You had a really, really good season. So let's talk about that a little bit. What made 2013 such a strong year for you?
I think, well, at first I had the full year of experience. I hadn't done an Ironman as an age grouper. So I did my first couple Ironmans as a pro in 2012. And they went really well for never having done Ironmans before. So I kind of like had the confidence of I can, compete at the Ironman level and do well here. And I think we had kind of at the time we said there was back in like the Kona Pro rankings days. And so you could either kind of like target these high points races and try to get points for Kona, or you could go to like the low point races and try to place well. So we kind of agreed, let's take another year. Didn't turn out this way, but let's just take another year and go to the low point races and then try to go after Kona the next year. So, I went to some of that. I mean, all the races were competitive, but I went to some where I was able to place well. And I think I just having that full year of training under my belt and then we had like the horrible pro camps that were terrible, but got me in really good shape at the start of the year. So, I was just kind of setting PRs in my first couple 70.3s of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I went to Ironman Texas and I just remember going to that race and kind of feeling like I'm really fit across the board. Like everything's clicking and it ended up being this ridiculously hot day and I was ready for it and just kind of like ended up second at Ironman Texas that day, which I think was probably like one of the best races I've ever had. So that was a big breakthrough there.
Okay. Nice. All right. So Ironman Texas. So that's still pretty early in the season. Then what came after that? I said, what? So what after Ironman Texas in April, right?
That was in May back then.
In May. Okay.
Yeah. So
what other races did you do that
so
year?
we kind of piggybacked off that, went into Placid, and that was the year I won Ironman Lake Placid. And then, which was obviously an awesome experience. The funny part is, like, I don't know if that was even a better race in Texas, but it's just the way Rachel Joyce wasn't there. So that ended up putting me in a position where I was like kind of on the cusp Kona points wise, even though that hadn't been my intent at the start of the year. And Mary and I were like, you know what? You don't get these chances often. Let's race Tremblant 3 weeks later and go for it, which Jesse tried to talk me out of that, but I'm glad I didn't let him because that was the one chance I ever got as a pro to race Kona. So I went to Tremblant and placed high. I think it was 6th and placed high enough to go to Kona that year.
So you did 4 Ironmans that year? Am I counting right?
Yes. Yes. Wow. I had done Ironman Florida the previous fall, so it was 5 1 year.
5 in a calendar year. That is a lot. And I mean, especially for someone who was as plagued with injuries that your body was able to come back.
Yeah, it was very like that 2012 through when I crashed in 2014, I was healthy. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but that was in my entire life. That was probably the 3 years I was able to tolerate more training than I ever had before.
So you went, all right, so Texas, Lake Placid, Tremblant, that gets you, and Tremblant was when then? Like August, so that was
August, yeah,
August,
yeah.
and then Kona now
I'm in Kona,
October.
yep.
And you went straight to Kona. So what was your experience like at Kona as a pro?
I think, at the time I was kind of fried because I'd raced a ton, but I think, at the time I was kind of like, yeah, it wasn't the best race ever. But looking back, I'm like, no, I actually had a really good race. Yeah, I think I was just hard on myself at the time because I had set this bar throughout the course of the year and I was like expecting more out of myself. But that's kind of actually one of my regrets is that I didn't let myself enjoy that experience more than I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's, so your first, I mean, second pro year. You got to
Yeah.
go. That's,
Yeah.
that's huge. Okay, so coming off of those 4 Ironmans, then you took a little break, maybe a little rest after that.
Little bit, little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, okay, so I think you alluded to it that you had a pretty serious accident the next year in 2014.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the next year I still had a solid season. It just, again, I was very hard on myself and because of what I'd accomplished the previous year. So I I didn't have a great day in Texas. I had a mechanical in Coeur d'Alene, so we just decided not to go for Kona that year. And came back, had a good race in Chattanooga that fall. Probably should have called it there, but because I was trying to get Kona points for the next year, decided I wanted to tack on Ironman Cozumel. And there I stupid, just like lapse of attention when screwing around with a water bottle, just went down 15 miles into the bike and ended up with like 2 pelvic and a sacral fracture and had a bunch of stuff torn up in my hip. So that was fun. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that one, you
Yeah.
didn't up and keep going, right? I mean, you, that was,
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean,
I only ask because I know that you get up and keep going under
yeah, yeah.
conditions
That was
others might not. So,
another thing I did very wrong was I think the PA at the time was like, well, if you do too much, you'll just be sore. And so I, like did way too much. I ended up having surgery the next year to fix the hip. And it took, I didn't race 2015. And then 2016, I was still like, there wasn't anything wrong. It's just like everything still hurt. And I just couldn't get myself back to I was raced some 70.3s. It wasn't great. And then I think at the end of the year, we ended up doing like just a sports hernia repair on that right side because I kind of messed everything up after the surgery, just coming back too quickly.
okay. So how does it work now? If your pro license, it's good for 3 years, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so if you're injured in there and then you can't race, how do you get any kind of grace period or anything, or is it just whatever you've done? And
I think, I'm not sure. I think you can apply for an exemption, but I never faced that because I was at least able to race enough, thankfully.
okay, and so when you came so from your relationship with QT2, when you first came in 2012, you were coaching with Mary Eggers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then you switched over at some point to work with Jesse.
yeah. Mary coached me 2012 to 2013, and then she left QT2 and I switched over with Jesse.
Okay. And all right, so now you've had a few injuries, took a while for your body to bounce back. That
Yeah,
takes us to 2015.
17.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. 2017. Okay. And you still, after that, I mean, you still raced another 6 years, right? So,
yes, yes.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So keep
So
going through your pro career and
2017 was kind of like my comeback year in that I had the hernia repair. I actually had a uterine fibroid removed that winter too. So it was just like this very, very slow build back through the winter and back through the spring. And I went to Australia to do my first Ironman in almost like 2.5, 3 years and got food poisoning on the way over. So that didn't happen, which was awful. But then I was able to come back later that summer, went to Mont Tremblant and, kind of had this like magical, like third place comeback Ironman. And then So that was definitely like a career highlight, was kind of going through what I did in the previous couple of years and coming back to that race. And raced one more time that year. It was a disaster. But I 2018 then probably was, I kind of had like a normal year, and like I raced a bunch of Ironmans. I had a couple good days. I think, the best was the second at Ironman Wisconsin that year. But that was the year that like all of like the glute and high hamstring and like butt issues, which I'd had on and off the previous couple of years, that was just, it was on all year. And by the end of the year, I was just like, I was racing well, so it was okay. But every run, I was just going out the door and just limping the first like 5 to 10 minutes. And, it's the kind of thing that I was like, I'll deal with this at the end of the year. But that kind of set the stage for everything that happened after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, then at some point, then that injury, it caught up to you, right?
Yeah. So that was kind of like, that was probably the second phase, was like 2017, 2018. Then 2019 was probably like the turning point towards the downfall of the pro career. But at the start of the year, I finally like had an MRI, and it showed some like proximal hamstring tearing. So we did PRP for it. I raced Ironman Texas, like kind of undertrained, but it actually went really well. And then I was all like motivated from that, like, okay, let's come back. And my body was just so compensated by that point, and I got sick in there, and I ended up trying to kind of just like plow through this right-sided hip pain, which I didn't think much of at first, because I, had a couple surgeries in that area. I've had pain there that was not explained, but that ended up being my proximal femoral stress fracture, which ended up that was bad. That took me out for a while. So
Yeah.
that knocked me out for the rest of the season. And then obviously 2020 was the pandemic year, but it wouldn't have mattered for me anyways, because I was still dealing with trying to get the bone to heal. So yeah.
But it did. You didn't call it quits then.
No, it didn't. I mean, probably it took until the fall of 2020. I finally had to go on like injectable osteoporosis meds that are used off label for bone stress injuries. And finally, by the start of 2021, it was stable. It was okay. But by that point, it was, the rest of the world had been training continuously for a year, whereas I had been trying to deal with this bone and had been on and off and all over the place. So everyone got faster and I got slower, pretty much.
That actually is just an overall question. Did you feel like in your time as a pro that the field changed, or the dynamic in the pro field changed?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think especially like if you look pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, it's a different world now. It's so much faster. Even the age group world, like coming back to that, I look at the age group times now and I'm like, these are faster than times that used to put me in the money as a pro back in the day. So
Why do you have a feeling of why that is?
I think just better athletes started coming. Well, I mean, obviously, like the shoe technology, the bike technology has made a big difference in times, but I think also part of it is like better athletes, like more and more better athletes started coming into the sport too. Like, I mean, I was a 18-minute college 5K runner. So that was decent, but there's like a million 18-minute, 5-minute 5K runners. So, when you start getting the like just naturally more talented athletes that start seeing a future in triathlon and start, you get like the Chelsea Sidaros who are, like winning 3K indoor titles coming into triathlon. If that changes the game.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll keep changing the game to the point where triathletes can make a decent living.
Yeah.
So while you were doing this, while you were a pro, were you also working another job?
So I was working as a physical therapist, couple different jobs, pretty much like part-time throughout the whole pro career. And I was full-time when I started racing pro, and then kind of dropped to part-time. And then I picked up coaching in there as well.
Okay. So was that because you wanted to keep a balance and do everything, or because you just the pro career wasn't supporting you enough financially?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't going to make enough as a pro to do that full time. So that was just financial financially needed to. And I liked having, it's funny because like my best years as a pro were the years I was actually working the most. So I kind of think having that something to think about outside of myself helped, even though the work itself, like it was just exhausting, training for like 3-4 hours and then going and being on my feet for 6 hours straight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it forces you to be efficient. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to have to like, and also to compartmentalize because you have to be on for each thing that you do. But
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
but it's, one of those I've talked to, I mean, several pros, and just it's kind of disappointing that triathlon doesn't have the money in it, that other sports do, because some of the athletes are really phenomenal. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so what has to change to, to make that happen? Because I mean, if you are a top pro, you're obviously making money and you have really strong sponsorships, but I don't know. I mean, the purse prize, just the prize list doesn't go that deep. And even like it cuts off pretty quickly, I mean, it drops off pretty quickly. So
Yeah, yeah. I think for me it was kind of like I never expected it to be my living, so it wasn't a big deal. I think it was, I was a walk-on in college. I was never a scholarship athlete. So for me, even being like winning, I think my biggest prize I ever won was like $7,500. So that for me, that felt like a lot. And I actually like was able to pay off my student loans pretty quickly because I was putting my prize money towards that.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So, all right. So talk about your final season as a pro, which would have been 2023.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I just kind of like 2021, 2022, like I came back, but it was like super, super lackluster. Like I was running 15, 20 minutes slower than I used to. And, I don't think I didn't crack the top 10 in 2021. And I finally had surgery on the hamstring, trying to give myself a better shot, which ended up not really solving much at the end of 2021. And like the following year, I was kind of coming back from the hamstring surgery, and well, even though I crashed and broke my face in Cozumel that year, I had a good race. I was kind of on the fence then of like, should I still race pro in 2023 or not? But it's like I should give myself one more chance in a year when I'm not coming off a surgery at the end of the previous years. And I had like switched coaching from Jesse to Tim then, and it's like I'll give it a swatch chance one more year. But I had a good race at Placid that summer, and then immediately had an Achilles injury like right afterwards. And it just had become this cycle of like I'd have a little ray of hope, I'd have a decent race, and I'd be like motivated to get at it, and then my body would just be like, nope, we're not doing this, like we're breaking down. And I just was never making progress, and it was just frustrating too, because I think I saw it as the level was like way up here and I had dropped way down here, and I couldn't make up that gap, and I felt like I had to be perfect in order to, so I was making stupid decisions that were leading me to just be out entirely. And I kind of thought about it a lot, like talked it over with Tim for a while, and was like, this isn't fun anymore, and I don't want to try age group again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how, I mean, as a pro, what would you say like your average training volume
I
was?
think in the years before I was first injured, I was probably training like 25, 30 hours a week. I think I got back up like probably like 22 to 25, but over the past like 3 or 4 years, if I can get to like 15 to 20 sustainably, I'm happy.
Okay. I mean, it's a lot of time to invest in something. So if you're not having fun with it and you're not making money doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And the other part too is just like the pro field was so different, and they'd taken away so many pro fields at so many races. So when you're not making money, you actually lose money like flying to these races, when I'm like, I could do like 7 different races within driving distance. And sure, the entry fee is a little bit more, but the travel costs are way less. And I'm like coaching a lot more now, so it's a lot more fun if I can just say, hey, I have like 3 athletes racing here, that'd be fun to go race there too.
Okay, so I mean, so talk about your last race as a pro.
It was kind of a nightmare. It was kind of a disaster. So it's Cozumel 2023, which I didn't learn from crashing there twice before. Like, I think it was, everyone's like, oh, third time's a charm, but it was Ann Rollins. She was like, 3 strikes, you're out, Jenny. So it was just the whole day was a mess. Like the swim got canceled and they had to bus us all back. And then, I like race and biking okay-ish. And then I flatted like mile 80, 85 and got it changed. It like immediately flats again. My entire tire is gashed. So I had to just like, thankfully there's an aid station, but I had to roll up and like sit there for 20 minutes in the baking sun while they radioed tech support and patch the tire. And by that point, no, I'm like last in the pro field by forever. So I just got out of the run and just was kind of like, this is a victory lap. And I think actually one of the things Tim had said to me, like, it's like my last like lap of my last pro race. I was like, yeah, just take it in. So that was kind of what I did. And, it was finished. It was like, it was dark, but it was not like going out well, but I think that was okay with me because I was like, you know what, this just confirms like I'm done racing pro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you finished that, did you made the decision to go to race as an age grouper?
Yeah, I'd already made that decision before the race.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So what was it? I mean, most of the pros, honestly, I've talked to finish this pro career and they're like, that was my last race. And they haven't come back to anything, maybe a different sport, maybe they run, maybe, but like they don't keep racing triathlon. So what was it that, what was in your mind? Like, what
I
was
think,
your,
for me, it never was, I want to stop racing triathlon entirely. It was just, my body was kind of like, we're not going to do this at this level anymore. And mentally, I was like, it's not fun anymore. Like, I want to still try to compete and I can't compete at the top level, but, I want to try to like racing and being competitive in my age group sounds a lot more fun to me. And I think for me, it's just kind of been like, I was never the best runner growing up. I was probably like 3rd to 5th on my team. Like I said, in college, I was just kind of happy to go to the meets. And I think for me, it's a part of my life. And so it's never been about like win or nothing to me. It's always just been for the love of the sport. So, and I think like, obviously a coach, like, I'm like, this is my life. Like, this is what I want to be doing still. It's just because I can't do it at one level doesn't mean I don't want to still be doing it at another level. And still, I kind of felt like I had unfinished business too with World Championships because I'd only made it there once as a pro and I'd like wanted to go back the whole time and never made it back. So,
So yeah, so this was a big year for that. Why don't you talk a little about your coming back to age group? What was your first age group race back? Was that oh no,
Galveston, yes, this is my first pro race and my first age group race.
Right.
Back, so
okay.
it was.
So what was that like then, having like all of a sudden now, instead of lining up with 20 people or whatever, you're lining up with a pack of people, right?
It was a learning curve for sure. I mean, I was like super nervous at the start because I'd never done a rolling start. Like it was all age group waves back when I had my season of age group years and years ago. But so yes, I didn't really know what to expect. I remember I was like super nervous. It's funny because Mary was there and like she grabbed me before the swim start and was like, just come up with me, like start with me, it'll be fine. And like I actually like I loved it because I could just sort of jump in the water and start doing my own thing instead of it just being like dead out sprint and everyone's gone immediately. So that was definitely adjustment. I think the biggest adjustment has been having the confidence to seed myself correctly, well, up far enough in the swim, which is incorrectly because everyone seeds incorrectly, and then just getting used to having so many people around me on the bike.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because where you're starting, you start far enough up on the swim and then you're coming out with men mostly.
Yeah,
for you. And
yeah.
And the crowd.
It's been weird because always saw myself as like I'm the worst pro swimmer, like back in the pack pro, but then in all my races this year, I've been like top 10% of age groupers. So it's just had to be this mindset shift of like, don't line yourself up halfway back in the pack because you're going to get way too caught up. Like you need to think of yourself as a halfway decent swimmer within this realm.
Yeah. So, I mean, Galveston though, 70.3, but that earned you a world championship qualification.
Yeah. So when I started off the year, I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to go to France. Like, I'll just, I signed up for Chattanooga in the fall. It's like, I'll try to qualify for Kona next year and just take this first age group race. But then, they added the 70.3 slots, and like, I think there's a lot of people that were like, oh, women aren't going to take these slots. I was like, well, yes, we are. So it's like, I'm going to go for it. Because one of my big things with racing age group is like, I want to do things as an age grouper that I couldn't do as a pro, and I couldn't qualify for world championships as a pro. So I'm going to do it. And it also coincided with my 40th birthday. So
Yeah, it was a good time. So yeah, when you came back as an age grouper, you were in the 40 to 44
yeah.
group. So, which, you would think by that age, women start slowing down, but they don't.
Yeah, I did. Like, I took one for the team. It's actually my age group, like half the races I've been in this year. I think 40-44 has been the overall amateur winner.
Yeah. I think I mean, I was hitting my PRs when I was that age group. That was my fastest. So yeah. So you got your world championship bid pretty early, but you still raced. You went then to Chattanooga, right?
Yeah.
7.3.
Yeah.
And then back to Lake Placid.
Yep.
Yeah. And each of those races you earned spots again. I mean,
pretty much
spots again. So I mean, you definitely earned, no question, you earned your opportunity to go to Nice. So what do you think of Nice?
it was definitely not a course where I was going to like excel. And again, after Placid, I didn't run between Placid and Nice, because after Placid, a little bit before Placid, my right hip had started hurting again, which that area, because I have had the bone issue there, I take it seriously now when it starts to hurt. I'm not just like, oh, it's just stuff. But I wasn't able to, and it ended up being just stuff, but I wasn't able to get an MRI until like 8 days before the race, or 8 days before we're going to leave. So I didn't run that whole time. And I mean, I think this is a big difference too between being pro and age group, was I was able to look at it and say like, okay, like you're not going to be 45 minutes off the back of everyone if you don't run here. So the biggest thing is just to make start lines, and then like your previous experience and your overall fitness will get you through. So I kind of went into Nice without any run volume in me. And I think just, I was physically prepared on the bike. I was prepared for the amount of climbing. I'm not a great technical descender, and I knew I wasn't going to run fast. So I just kind of like took my time down there and survived the run. And it wasn't the best day, but I was really happy I did it and had the experience and got through it.
Yeah. That the technical descent there at the end of the bike, that took a lot of energy.
Yeah. I mean, people are just like flying past me, and I'm like, you know what, this is not worth it. I think that's also, as I've gotten older, I'm like, I don't need to take these stupid risks anymore.
Yeah, I hear you there.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty cool run. I mean, having so much crowd support on it and the loop course and everything. I mean, it wasn't an interesting run, but it was having all the crowd.
It was a lot of loops.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And they took longer than it seemed like they should have. But that's, I guess, what happens when you haven't trained. So
that's impressive, though. I mean, that you could get up without doing any run training and still run a marathon at the end of that day. I mean, that's a testament to all those years that you've fitness that you built up. So
I mean, I think earlier in the year, I'd had, after Chattanooga, just because we drove like some of the old, I struggle with my left glute no matter what. Like, that's always there, and it flared up after Chattanooga, so I'd had to take some time off running. But I think that's been a big thing, is just it's been a healthier place this year than that. Like, if something starts to creep up, instead of trying to push through it because I'm trying to be perfect, I can feel like I have the freedom to just do what I would tell anyone else to do, but it's harder to do for yourself, and just say, okay, just like take a week or two, swim, bike, do some elliptical if you have to, and you'll be okay. So I haven't run like I want to this year, but I made it to every start line that I wanted to. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And I know I had saved doing your interview until after the World Championships. And I said, okay, that's good. This is how we'll finish the series with Jennie. And then like, wait, no, I have one more. So you did, I mean, Lake Placid and Nice are in 8 weeks of each other. And then you flipped and did Ironman California within what,
5.
5 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, that was because at the start of the year, I had signed up for Ironman Chattanooga, thinking I would try to just qualify for Kona next year. And that Chattanooga was a week after Nice. So I transferred it to California. And one of Dave, my husband's like best friends, was making his return, his like 40th, turned 40, like return to Ironman there. So it's like, well, this will be fun. I'll just go and roll fitness forward and race in California. But I think actually I ended up being a little bit more motivated than I was planning on for it, because I was like kind of fried, but at the same time, it was kind of like, well, I want to lock down the Kona qualification for next year. And my training for Nice didn't turn out like I wanted to, but now I can actually like at least get some run training in before going into this race.
and you had a really good day.
Yeah. I was, I think it was just when you do a bike with like 8,000 feet of climbing that takes 6.5 hours, a completely flat 5-hour ride and a downstream swim. Like, well, this took a lot less time. So I think that just mentally helped. And I was
When I was
pretty
looking at
bike.
the swim times there, I was like, did they shorten the swim? Was the water really cold? Then I guess the current was
Oh,
just
it was
not that
very
day.
down, very down current. I think it was,
Yeah.
like you swim down one river and then you make a left into the second river. And a lot of people actually like missed the turn buoy because the current was already pushing them so far down. I think I looked at it one point with my watch, like it was like a 5-minute 500 split. I'm like, well, I guess
Oh
this is
my
what it
God.
feels like to swim fast.
That's nice. Wow, that is fast. Did they have like catchers or something if you missed the turn to like bring you
I
back?
think, at first people were starting to, like Dave kind of missed it. He's strong enough swimmer that he went back up and around, but eventually like people were trying to they were trying to swim against the current, and eventually the kayakers were like, no, just go. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, so down current swim, fast bike course. But I mean, there's one thing to have a fast time, another thing, but you were placing really well. I mean, all day, right? So
Yeah. I mean, again, like I wasn't happy with like what I ran, but I was happy with how I ran in terms of just like the execution of it. And it was what I had at the end of the season. So it was tough because Dave was racing too. So I didn't have anyone telling me like what place I was in the age group. I knew I was like, I think I was 9th on course, but who knows? And there were people closing in on me. So, I was just with the rolling start too. It's kind of the thing. I was just full gas until the end. I was like, I'm not letting up at all. So
yeah,
thankfully, I mean, I was safe in my age group. I was second by a long shot on either side.
and that was good enough for a Kona slot. So now
It
two
was.
world championships in 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious to see how your experience is going to be different in Kona versus Nice.
Yeah. I'm hoping, I feel like I learned a good amount too this year about just trying to keep myself healthier without this. It was still hard to break that like all or nothing mentality, but I think it was a very good learning experience for me in terms of what we can do to try to make it a smoother build into it this year, hopefully. Maybe say that a lot, but yeah, I'm excited. I think Kona will be a better course for me because I think I know how to train to handle heat, and there's no descents that I'm not going to be good at no matter what I do.
And the more important question now is, are you having fun?
I am. It's a lot of fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
It's
sure.
like a whole new sport you get to experience, right?
It really is. It really is. I think it's so fun just to like, I mean, I loved the pro women's field. Like they were super, super supportive. And like, that was one of the hardest things that made it hard to step away. But, it's just a lot of fun to just kind of be in the masses.
Yeah, and see, and it was fun for me because I did get to race you what, three times.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's Jenny running, and there's me going like, oh my God. I'm gonna get through it. I'm gonna finish. But it was
Yeah,
all
yeah. I think, and the kind of the age group races are fun too, because it's sort of like a chance just to, kind of relive my ego stroking glory days of being like, well, I'm kind of near the front. This is fun again.
yeah, I mean, and looking at it, I mean, I know that we always look at ourselves differently than other people view us, but every time I saw you go by me in a race, I'm like, there she is. It was
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely been tough because like I get passed on the run these days, and like it's definitely something I have to accept, and just, my body is not what it was 5, 10 years ago, but I think it's better suited for the age group field. And, it's
yeah, I mean, your body has given you a lot. You have a really impressive career, and I'm glad that you're continuing on with it and still
yeah. I think that
yeah.
this fall was definitely like doing the 3 Ironmans in rapid succession too. I think that was a huge confidence boost for me to be like, okay, like you did handle this. Like, I think part of it has just been mentally, like, I feel like I'm so fragile, but then I look at that, I'm like, it wasn't perfect. We had to modify things, but you got through it and you're okay. So I think that was just a good little, like, learn to trust yourself a little bit more again.
Okay.
Boost.
Wow, that sounds like a really successful season in my book. So, and coming
There's a
out,
lot of second place. There's a lot of second place this year.
second place is good. Second place is podium, but I'm sure next year you're
and
looking
like
for
the
that.
women that beat me were incredibly impressive, and like most of them went on to podium at Nice, so I had like no complaints there. But I'm just like, I didn't have great luck of picking races.
Yeah, you need that race. Who wasn't there?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's still the podium is strong. The fields are bigger, than they used to be, and they're more competitive, and that's an exciting thing to see in the
Oh,
spring.
my God. Yeah. I mean, the winner of my age group in California went faster than, like, she was 9:15. Like, that's insane.
Wow.
Like, it's super, super impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? We'll see where you are next year after.
Yeah. The hope springs eternal.
It's going to be your second year. That's when the breakout year is supposed to be, right? So next year.
There we go. And then remind me not to go to Cozumel the year after that.
I will. Be like, no. And remember, what Ann said, 3 strikes and you're out. You can't go back there.
Yeah. It was funny at one point when I was like, when my hip was off, and I was like, well, if there is a stress reaction, I'm like doing the math. I'm like, maybe I could race Cozumel. I'm like, no.
I'm glad that the math was.
Yeah.
You got yourself, Denise, because that's much more exciting. So
Yeah.
thank you, Jenny. Thanks for taking the time and telling your whole story. And we'll keep on watching you and see what next year brings.
Great. Thank you, Reem.
Thanks.